So today I want to talk about something that happened in the last 48 hours that almost nobody is analyzing correctly. Everyone is talking about Trump's comments. Everyone is talking about oil prices. Everyone is talking about the Strait of Hormuz. But almost nobody is talking about what Trump actually just did. And once you understand it, you will see this entire war very differently. On April 1st, 2026, President Trump posted a message on Truth Social telling America's allies who depend on the Strait of Hormuz for their energy that they need to build up some delayed courage, go to the Strait, and just take it. He said the United States won't be there to help you anymore, and added that Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. Now, most people are reading this as tough diplomacy. Most people are reading this as Trump putting pressure on Europe and Asia to contribute military forces to reopen the Strait. Most people think this is a negotiating tactic, a way to force allies to step up and share the burden. But that is not what this is. What Trump just did is something far bigger and far more dangerous than a negotiating tactic. What Trump just did was signal to the entire world that America is no longer willing to guarantee the security architecture that has held the global system together for 80 years. And once that signal is sent, once that message is delivered, it cannot be taken back. The consequences are irreversible. Let me explain this very carefully, because this is the part that most analysts are completely missing. Part 1. What people think Trump said. So let us start with the surface reading, the conventional interpretation that you are seeing in most mainstream coverage right now. The conventional reading goes like this. Trump is frustrated. America has been doing all the heavy lifting in this war. American forces have degraded Iran's military. American bombers have struck Iranian infrastructure. American carriers are patrolling the Gulf. And meanwhile, Europe is sitting on the sidelines. Japan is sitting on the sidelines. South Korea is sitting on the sidelines. So Trump is angry, and he is using public pressure to force them to act. He is saying, if you want your oil, you need to fight for it yourselves. America is not going to do everything for you. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. It sounds like burden sharing. It sounds like Trump pushing allies to take responsibility instead of free-riding on American military power. But here is the problem with that reading. It completely misses what is actually happening underneath the surface. Part 2. What Trump actually just did. Now here is what Trump actually just did. And this is where you need to pay very close attention because this changes everything. For 80 years, since the end of World War II, the foundation of American global power has not been military superiority. It has been the alliance system. America tells Europe, we will protect you. America tells Japan, we will protect you. America tells South Korea, we will protect you. America tells the Gulf states, we will protect you. And in exchange for that protection, those countries align themselves with American interests. They buy American debt. They use the US dollar. They support American-led institutions. This is the foundation of American power. Not tanks, not missiles, not carriers. The alliance system. The promise of protection in exchange for alignment. And what Trump just did was break that promise. Not temporarily, not as a negotiating tactic, structurally. When Trump says you need to get your own oil, and America won't be there to help you anymore, he is telling allies that American security guarantees are conditional, temporary, and unreliable. He is telling them that if things get difficult, if the costs get too high, America will walk away and leave them to deal with the consequences on their own. And once that message is sent, once allies hear that message and internalize it, the entire logic of the alliance system collapses. Because no country is going to structure its entire national security strategy around an alliance that might disappear the moment things get hard. No country is going to depend on a protector that might abandon them when they need protection the most. So what do they do instead? They start making their own arrangements. They start building their own security architecture. They start aligning themselves with powers that are more reliable, more predictable, more willing to commit for the long term. And that is exactly what is about to happen. Not gradually, not over decades, right now, in real time, in response to what Trump just said. Part 3. The chain reaction begins. So let me walk you through the chain reaction that Trump just triggered, step by step, country by country. And by the end of this, you will understand why this single statement is one of the most consequential moments in the entire war. Step 1. Europe makes peace with Russia. Right now, Europe is supporting America's confrontation with Russia in Ukraine. It is paying enormous costs, energy costs, military costs, refugee costs, all of it to maintain alignment with American policy in Eastern Europe. But Europe is watching very carefully what is happening in the Middle East right now. And the lesson Europe is drawing from Trump's statement is very simple. If America is willing to tell its allies to go get your own oil when things get difficult in the Middle East, then America might be willing to walk away from Europe too. So why is Europe continuing to pay enormous costs to fight America's war in Ukraine if America is signaling that it might not be there for Europe when Europe needs it? The logical response for Europe is to start negotiating its own security arrangement with Russia. Not because Europe likes Russia, not because Europe trusts Russia, but because Europe needs a stable relationship with the largest energy supplier on its border. And it can no longer trust that America will guarantee European security if things go wrong. So Europe begins quiet diplomatic engagement with Moscow. And the 80-year Western alliance that America built in Europe begins to fracture. Step 2. Japan and South Korea remilitarize. Now let us look at what happens in Asia. Japan and South Korea are watching this war very carefully. They are watching America struggle against Iran. They are watching American forces unable to reopen the Strait of Hormuz after more than a month of military operations. They are watching Trump talk about winding down the war, even though none of America's strategic objectives have been achieved. And they are asking themselves a very uncomfortable question. If America cannot win decisively against Iran, can America really protect us against China? Can America really protect us against North Korea? And then Trump says, go get your own oil. America won't be there to help you anymore. That is the moment everything changes for Japan and South Korea. Because if America is willing to walk away from its allies in the Middle East when things get difficult, America might walk away from its allies in Asia too. So Japan and South Korea have no choice. They have to remilitarize. They have to build their own military capabilities. They cannot rely on American protection anymore, because American protection has just been revealed as conditional and unreliable. Japan, which has been constitutionally pacifist since World War II, accelerates the most significant military expansion in its post-war history. South Korea begins developing its own advanced missile systems. Both countries stop buying American weapons in the same quantities because they are now investing in their own defense industries. And American strategic dominance in Asia begins to erode. Step 3. The GCC aligns with Iran. And now, the most immediate and most catastrophic consequence. The Gulf Cooperation Council nations, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman. Right now, these countries exist under American military protection. American bases, American carrier groups, American security guarantees. But Trump just told them, go get your own oil. America won't be there for you anymore. So what do the GCC nations do? They look around. They ask themselves, who can actually guarantee our security if America leaves? And there is only one answer: Iran. Iran is the only regional power with the military capability to control the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is the only regional power that can guarantee the flow of energy exports that the GCC depends on for survival. Iran is the only regional power that will still be here in 10 years and 20 years and 50 years. So the GCC has no choice. They begin quiet negotiations with Tehran. Not because they like Iran, not because they trust Iran, but because they need a security guarantor that is reliable and permanent. And America just demonstrated that it is neither. The moment the GCC realigns toward Iran, the entire Middle Eastern order that America built over the past 80 years collapses. Step 4. The petrodollar dies. And now we get to the most devastating economic consequence of all: the collapse of the petrodollar. The petrodollar system works like this. The GCC sells its oil in US dollars. Every barrel of oil that Saudi Arabia exports, every cubic meter of gas that Qatar ships, it is all priced and sold in US dollars. That creates permanent global demand for US dollars. And then the GCC takes those dollars and recycles them back into the American economy. It buys US Treasury bonds. It invests in American financial markets. It funds American debt. This is the mechanism that allows America to function with $39 trillion in debt. The petrodollar creates artificial global demand for US dollars and US debt. But the moment the GCC realigns toward Iran, the petrodollar dies. The GCC no longer has any reason to price its oil in US dollars. It begins pricing oil in yuan, in euros, in a basket of currencies. And the moment that happens, global demand for US dollars collapses. And America, sitting on $39 trillion in debt, has no way to service that debt without the artificial demand that the petrodollar created. The American economy, which depends on foreign countries continuously buying US dollars and US debt, begins to collapse. This is the direct, logical, inevitable consequence of what Trump just said. Step 5. The dollar loses reserve currency status. So now let us add all of this together. Europe fractures from the Western alliance and makes its own arrangements with Russia. Japan and South Korea remilitarize and stop supporting American military infrastructure. The GCC realigns toward Iran and abandons the petrodollar. What does all of that mean for the US dollar? It means the US dollar loses its status as the global reserve currency. Nations stop holding dollars. Nations stop buying American debt. And America, with $39 trillion in debt and an economy built on the assumption that foreign nations will continuously buy that debt, faces a catastrophic economic crisis. This is what Trump just triggered. Not intentionally, not strategically, but the consequences are real regardless of intent. Part 4. Why this cannot be walked back. Now here is the part that makes this so dangerous. Once a signal like this is sent, it cannot be taken back. Trump can issue clarifications tomorrow. He can say he was misunderstood. He can say America is committed to defending its allies. But it does not matter. The signal has already been sent. The message has already been received. Because allies do not make national security decisions based on what a president says today. They make national security decisions based on what they think a president might do tomorrow, next year, 10 years from now. And what Trump just demonstrated is that American security guarantees are conditional. They depend on American domestic politics. They depend on oil prices. They depend on whether American voters are happy. And no country is going to bet its entire national survival on guarantees that conditional and that fragile. So even if Trump walks this back tomorrow, the damage is done, because allies now know that American commitments can be withdrawn the moment things get difficult. And that knowledge changes everything. Part 5. The historical parallel. There is a historical parallel here that is very important to understand. In 1956, during the Suez Crisis, America forced Britain and France to withdraw from Egypt by threatening to collapse the British pound. And that single moment marked the end of the British Empire as a global power. Not because Britain lost a war, but because Britain's allies realized that Britain could no longer be relied upon to protect their interests. And once that realization set in, the entire British alliance system collapsed within a generation. What Trump just did is America's Suez moment. The moment when allies realize that America can no longer be relied upon to maintain the security architecture that it built. And once that realization sets in, the entire American alliance system will collapse, just like the British system did. We are watching the end of the American-led global order in real time. And it is happening because of a single Truth Social post. Part 6. What happens next? So what happens next? Let me walk you through the most likely sequence of events over the coming weeks and months. First, European leaders begin quiet diplomatic outreach to Moscow about energy security, about Ukraine, about a new European security architecture that does not depend entirely on American guarantees. Second, Japan announces a major expansion of its self-defense forces and begins public debate about revising Article 9 of its constitution. Third, Saudi Arabia and the UAE begin signaling through back channels that they are open to direct negotiations with Iran about regional security arrangements. Fourth, China accelerates its efforts to internationalize the yuan and create alternative financial infrastructure that does not depend on the US dollar. And fifth, global financial markets begin pricing in the long-term decline of American power. Not in a single dramatic crash, but slowly, steadily, as investors realize that the foundation of American economic dominance is fracturing. None of this will be announced in dramatic headlines, but it will be happening behind the scenes, in diplomatic meetings, in quiet realignments that will reshape the global order for the next 50 years. Part 7. Why Trump did this now. I want to be clear about something. I do not think Trump intended to trigger the collapse of the American alliance system. I do not think he woke up this morning and decided to end 80 years of American global leadership. What I think happened is much simpler and much more dangerous. Trump is facing enormous domestic political pressure. Gas prices are over $4 a gallon. Americans are angry. The midterm elections are 7 months away. So he posted what he thought was a tough message, a message that would play well with his base, a message that would put pressure on allies to contribute more. But what Trump does not understand is that words matter, signals matter. When the President of the United States tells allies that America will not be there to help them, those allies take that message seriously. They plan accordingly, and those decisions are irreversible. Trump thinks he is playing domestic politics, but he is actually dismantling the architecture of American global power, and he does not even realize it. Part 8, the conclusion. So let me bring this all together. On April 1st, 2026, President Trump told America's allies to go get your own oil and said that America won't be there to help you anymore. Most people think this is tough diplomacy. Most people think this is a negotiating tactic. But what Trump actually did was send a signal to the entire world that American security guarantees are conditional, unreliable, and subject to change based on American domestic politics. And once that signal is sent, allies begin making their own arrangements. Europe begins negotiating with Russia. Japan and South Korea remilitarize. The GCC realigns toward Iran. The petrodollar collapses. The US dollar loses reserve currency status. And the American economy, built on $39 trillion of debt, faces a catastrophic crisis. This is not a prediction. This is the logical, inevitable consequence of what Trump just said. America spent 80 years building the most powerful alliance system in human history. A system that gave America unmatched global influence, economic dominance, and strategic reach. And Trump just dismantled that system with a single social media post. Not because he intended to, but because he did not realize that in geopolitics, words have consequences. And once you tell your allies that you will not be there for them, they start making plans that do not include you. We are witnessing the end of the American century. Not because America lost a war, not because America ran out of money, but because America told its allies it was no longer willing to be the guarantor of global security. And once that message is sent, it cannot be taken back. The world is already moving on. Subscribe for more analysis of this war and its consequences explained in simple, clear English. And tell me in the comments, do you think Trump understands what he just did? Or is this the biggest strategic mistake in modern American history? I will see you next time.